Welcome to the Capital News. I am your host, Alex Kreitis. Today is January 13th, 2020. Thank you so much for joining me. Hope you all enjoyed your weekend. Title of today's podcast, Truth, Lies, What's the Difference? Does it really make a difference if we're told the truth, if we're lied to? Can we tell the difference? Does it matter if it's coming from the President of the United States himself? Does it matter if it's coming from one of the members of the Trump administration? Does it matter if it's coming from a Democrat, a Republican, independent, an American, a foreigner? Does it make a difference? Is it just a narrative? Is it just a distraction? Is it just a complete fraud? What's going on here? Well, we have market performance we're going to talk about today. I want to talk about the U.S.-China trade deal phase 1 because that is supposed to be signed this Wednesday on January 15th. So we're going to have to talk about that. I want to talk about some of the stories from last week because obviously there was a lot to discuss. Are we on the brink of World War III? What's going on here? Is there escalation, de-escalation? Is it back-channeling and diplomacy? What's really taking place? Do we know? Truth, lies, what's the narrative? What's the distraction? Any conflict, any war, the first casualty is always the truth. We know this. So we're going to talk about some of those follow-up stories across the spectrum when it comes to US-Iranian relations, because we have the Boeing story getting shot down, that plane getting shot down by Iran. We have a mixed bag now from the White House, from the president himself, doing what he does, escalating, exaggerating, misleading, outright lies perhaps. And then obviously I'm getting sick and tired of it, because the president comes out and says one thing, and then another member of his administration, senior members of his administration, come out and contradict him. So who do we believe? It becomes this question of credibility that we have been harping on since last spring, and it doesn't seem to be getting better. In fact, it's starting to get worse, because now we're talking about things that can actually lead to war, or at least some sort of military conflict. Before, a lot of it was more on the economic side of things. Now it's starting to get a little bit more dangerous, because now we're talking about armed conflict. Okay, so lives are literally in the balance. Okay, and then obviously the Federal Reserve is still putting the pedal to the metal. But first, to market performance, we have another record day on the New York markets. On the U.S. markets. We have the Dow Jones up 64 points, gaining 0.2%. The S&P reaching all-time highs, gaining 21 points, an increase of 0.6%. The NASDAQ 100 and the NASDAQ market, the broader, is also up 1% for the day. And Russell 2000, the small cap index, gained about 0.7%. Now, the trade headlines is probably a little bit more of the boost for today. Of course, the markets knew about this months ago. So what else sort of broke today? Oh, that's right. The U.S. is no longer declaring China to be a currency manipulator. Whoa, how can that be, folks? It was only a few short months ago that the United States, quote-unquote, formally accused and charged China with being a currency manipulator. And now, lo and behold, what a coincidence. The same week that there is supposed to be a signing ceremony at the White House, China is no longer a currency manipulator. Wow, my goodness. Is anybody surprised by this stupidity? Perhaps China was never a currency manipulator. Or are they? Does it make a difference? Is it just politics? Are they a currency manipulator? Aren't they? Does anybody care? Does Trump care? Or does he just want a headline to boost the markets? We'll hurt the markets for a day, and then we'll boost them another day in the future. That's all. Because I can assure you, ladies and gentlemen, that China didn't do anything different to say, well, we are now a currency manipulator. Several months ago, we no longer are. It's kind of embarrassing for the United States of America if you really break it down. It's kind of embarrassing for the President of the United States, who's supposed to be this great deal maker. I mean, was this part of the deal to remove China as being a currency manipulator? Did China say, we're not coming? Did they use that as leverage to say, look, you got to remove this or we're not going to sign this thing? And remember, folks, from what we know, and we know very, very little of this deal, but at least what we know from the signing ceremony, President Xi of China is not coming. He is not going to be a Chinese signatory to the Phase 1 trade deal. No. It's going to be Vice Premier Li He, who has been leading the Chinese trade delegation since the beginning of this fiasco. He's going to be the Chinese signatory to this thing. And Donald Trump is supposed to be the U.S. signatory. We have no idea what's in it, but what we know from some reports that are out there, China is supposed to be buying more U.S. agricultural products. I mean, that's not too hard of a feat because they haven't been buying that much over the past couple of years since this thing started. But at the same time, they have not increased or removed their import quota. So what are they going to do? We already know that China has started to source supply from other countries, Argentina, Brazil, Russia, many others, for a whole host of products. We told you this was going to happen months and months and months ago, that the Chinese, or any other country for that matter, and the United States would fall into this bucket too if somebody did it to us, would not sit idly by on our hands, twiddling our thumbs, waiting for some sort of miraculous trade deal. If we have to source something from another country, we're going to do so. We're not going to wait for geopolitics to resolve itself. We're going to go look for something somewhere else. And the Chinese, they got 1.4 billion mouths to feed. It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. But somehow, the president is going to get a deal that he is going to tout as one of the best ever. Yet all it's going to do, maybe, and this is a big maybe because there's no enforcement behind this, none whatsoever, because Donald Trump is going to be concerned with the stock market, because if he has to increase tariffs because China doesn't make good on this, well, the market's going to go down. That's going to cause a complete tizzy, and this is going to be nothing but easy fodder for his Democratic rivals to exploit and say, this guy can't close. He's not a deal maker. Chinese aren't following through. They have no respect for the United States. He says everybody has respect for the United States. They don't care. There's no deal here. It's back and forth. It creates a whole bunch of uncertainty, and nobody likes the uncertainty. The business environment doesn't like the uncertainty. The consumer doesn't like the uncertainty. And one report, one study after the next keeps coming out, because now we've had quite a bit of data coming out, and this is no surprise to anybody with two brain cells to rub together, that it has been the American consumer who has been paying the toll, who has been paying the price of these tariffs. It hasn't been the Chinese writing a check to Uncle Sam, filling our coffers. All you got to do is go look at the data. Our coffers are not flush with cash, ladies and gentlemen. If they were, we wouldn't have trillion-dollar deficits. And it was just reported officially, we already knew this months ago, but now it's out there officially, that 2019 suffered a $1 trillion deficit. 1.2. A $1.2 trillion deficit for 2019. Surprise, surprise. And we are already on the path to exceed that for fiscal year 2020. Don't want to cut spending. There are no fiscal conservatives out there screaming and yelling at Donald Trump. Sean Hannity, Fox News, Rush Limbaugh, Mark Levin, all these great people out there on the Republican side. Not a peep. Not a peep. $1 trillion deficits. If this was Barack Obama, it would be the crime of the century. Sean Hannity, you'd never hear him shut up about it. And rightly so. And rightly so. But now it's his guy. It's his buddy who's in the White House. Because he has an R after his name. He's a Republican. He can do no wrong now. Free trade? No, we don't care about free trade. Slap as many tariffs on whoever you want to, whenever you want to. We're perfectly fine with that. $1 trillion deficits? Make them $2 trillion, $3 trillion. What do we care? Our guy's in charge. More endless excursions all over the world? Yeah, go ahead. Keep doing it. No problem. Bomb, kill whoever you want. What's the intelligence? We don't care. True, lies? Does it make a difference? No, because it's my guy. It's my guy. And everybody continues to fall for this hook, line, and sinker. Divide and conquer. Swamp isn't being drained, ladies and gentlemen. The kiddie pool hasn't even been touched. Hasn't even been touched. Military-industrial complex is alive and well. Very much so. The banks are making out like the thieves that they are. Washington, D.C. continues to spend more money than it takes in. at a clip of $1 trillion, by the way, that you're paying for. That is the swamp. The Federal Reserve is printing money like it's going out of style because it is. I mean, if you've been paying attention to this podcast, you should know who and what the swamp is. That's it, right there. That's trillions and trillions of dollars of your money, by the way, being utilized not for your goals, but for theirs. On your hard work, on your sweat, on your blood and tears, whatever you want to say. You're footing the bill. And are you benefiting from it? No, you're not benefiting from it. It's a dog and pony show. It's a distract. It's divide and conquer. It's never ending. That's why you can't make heads or tails of who's telling you the truth. I mean, you can almost bet that if Donald Trump is giving one of his many rallies, or if he's giving an interview, if he's moving his lips, he's probably lying. He's most definitely misleading. It's unbelievable. It's disgusting. You know, one of the jobs of the president is it's sort of his moral obligation. This isn't just on Donald Trump. This is on any president. And recent presidents have fallen well short of this. But they have a moral obligation to unite the country. Any leader has an obligation to unite the country, to unite the team, to unite a company, to unite a school, to unite the students, to unite the troops. Whatever it is, that's the job of a leader, is to unite, not to divide. Who divides are cult leaders. Who divides are dictators. Who divides are manipulators. Who divides are people who are very insecure. Those are the people who divide. Those are the people, saboteurs. These are the people who try to divide people, who try to divide families, who try to divide teams, militaries. Leaders are supposed to unite. And Donald Trump is not uniting this country. Barack Obama didn't unite this country. George W. Bush. The list goes on and on and on. Again, I'm not here to pick on Donald Trump, but he's the man at the top right now, so he's going to get it. And he doesn't have to. He makes these decisions. He makes these choices. He's not a hand puppet. I'm not making the words come out of his mouth. I'm not typing for thunder thumbs. He is. He's making these decisions. And they're not the right ones. Because this country is on the brink of collapse. It's on the brink of collapse. Social collapse, moral collapse, the family unit's falling apart. K through 12 education, these kids don't know their rear end from their elbow. But they know Instagram. They know celebrities. Is that the country you want? All that money you pay into the federal government for them to run the education system? Is this what you're paying for? Is this what you want? I highly doubt it. But maybe it is. It's not what I want, but maybe that's what you want, and you're getting exactly what you're paying for. I think we can do better than that. I think we have to do better than that. You know, Donald Trump was tweeting out, he put a picture out there of Senator Chuck Schumer and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi in front of an Iranian flag. Just last week, I have very, very little respect for both of those people. But that's low, and that is beneath the office of the President of the United States. Just last week we talked about Republican Representative Doug Collins being called out by that interview that I was watching on CNN by Erin Burnett. And she was interviewing another Republican in regards, questioning him about Doug Collins' comments that Democrats love terrorists. And I said, that's a softball, pal. All you got to do is say that's the wrong statement to make. We got to rise above this divisiveness, this very poor and degrading and disrespectful rhetoric. And we have to understand that we're all Americans here. We're all on the same team. It was a softball to this fellow Republican, but he couldn't say it, and he didn't. He pointed to what other Democrats were saying. That's not the question, pal. Step up. Now, to his credit, Representative Doug Collins did come out and apologize. That was a no-brainer. That was a no-brainer. But I told you the fish rots from the head down. And when you see the type of rhetoric and the type of action and the type of tweets that come out from the commander-in-chief, you say, well, if he can do it, why can't I? And when Donald Trump over the weekend comes out and puts out that, retweets that picture of Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi standing before an Iranian flag, that's disgusting. And again, I have very little respect for those two individuals. But that's not what you do. And then the president comes out and says Nancy Pelosi will go down as one of the worst speakers in U.S. history. You don't come out and say that either when you have an agenda of trying to get things done in this country that need to be done. That type of rhetoric does not bring people together. It puts them further and further, deeper and deeper into their silos. Wow, it kind of seems like divide and conquer, doesn't it? Not so much draining the swamp. That's what the swamp has been doing for years. And just because your guy is in the White House, shame on you. Shame on you for giving him a pass for saying and conducting himself the way in which he is. He has to go. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, he has to go. This is beneath the office of the presidency. So many other presidents have conducted themselves in similar manners. And guess what? If I was doing this podcast years ago when it was Barack Obama, you'd be hearing the same thing. My dog in this hunt is truth and justice, peace and prosperity, and free market capitalism. I don't care if you're a Democrat, Republican, man, woman, gay, straight. I don't care about those things. I judge you on the content of your character and on the fullness of your policies. And what we've witnessed for the past few years and years before that under previous administrations has been terrible. Has been terrible. You want to congratulate Donald Trump on getting the tax cuts through? That's fine. But what spending did he cut? None. And in fact, he's increased it, and he's patted himself on the back for increasing that as well, which is driving our deficits. Sure, you put more money into my right pocket just to take it out of my left. It's not good. Does it give you a short-term boost? Sure did. Sure does. We saw that in 2018. We saw a little bit of that carry forward to 2019. But that's it. It's not going to go much further. It's not going to go much further than that. And if you pay attention to this podcast and all of the economic data that we go through here, you understand that there is a decline, a global decline, that's continuing. That if you had such a booming economy, you would not have trillion-dollar deficits. The U.S. Treasury, our coffers would be flush with cash. They're not. They're not. And by this time next year, if not before that, we will have a national debt of $24 trillion. $24 trillion. Where are the fiscal conservatives? Nowhere to be found. Nowhere to be found. So a couple things when it comes to truth, lies. What's the difference? We have Iran coming out over the weekend saying, oh, yeah, that's right. It was an engine failure of that Ukrainian Boeing. No. We shot it down by accident. By accident. They're getting along with everybody else. The United States, New Zealand, Canada, the UK. All right, yeah. It was an accident. They didn't mean to do it. We'll never know the truth. And if we do, it'll be years and years down the road, if that's the case. Maybe it was on purpose, but through some sort of diplomatic back-channeling, we'll just say this was the fog of war. We're going to let this one slide because if you did it on purpose and everybody came out and said you did it on purpose, well, then we got to retaliate because you cannot be targeting innocent civilians in an airline. Can't do it, so we would have to retaliate. But if we just say you did it by accident, somebody got nervous, they pulled the trigger, fog of war, just let's calm down because we don't want to escalate and that we'll just let it slide from there. Maybe that's what's happening. Maybe not. Maybe it really was an accident. We'll never know. We will never know. But nevertheless, 176 individuals are dead because of the tensions that exist within that area, in that region. And what's the end game? We have no idea. We don't know what the end game is from Donald Trump. We have no idea from Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, from Defense Secretary Esper. We have no idea what the end game is. It's not regime change. We were told that by Donald Trump, although they assassinated a top general. Qasem Soleimani, who was supposed to be, potentially was going to be maybe a president of Iran or somebody up there within that regime. I am not here to be an apologist because I am not an apologist for Soleimani or the Iranian regime. It's a very oppressive and evil regime. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So many others on this planet too. How many are we supposed to go after? What's the end game? What's going on here? How many more billions or trillions of dollars that we don't have are we going to spend? How many more lives have to come home in a flag draped coffin before we wake up and say enough's enough? 20 years almost in Afghanistan, and the Taliban has more power now than they did during 2001. Iraq wants us out of their country. I mean, what are we getting for this? I mean, maybe you could say, well, the spoils of war, maybe if it only cost, 50 cents a gallon of gas, maybe you say, well, maybe it was worth it. We don't even have that. And depending what state you're in, you might be really getting hit over the head with gas and fuel taxes. So we don't even have that. So there's the truth and lies when it comes to the Ukrainian Boeing that was shot down. We're going to say it was an accident because that's the story we're being told. Then we have the broader story of the assassination of General Soleimani. At first, it was imminent, right? And the reason why the administration was pushing the word imminent, because that's the legal justification that they could use within the War Powers Act that the president can exercise. Well, we don't have time to call up Congress because there's something imminent. You know what that means, don't you? Right now, right away, that's what imminent means. Now, of course, wow, it's legalese, it's ambiguous. Is it a day? Is it an hour? Is it 2 minutes? Is it 2 weeks? Well, it's imminent. But we don't know. It was imminent. That was the justification. Now, well, it was part of a broader deterrence strategy to sort of send a message to other potential enemies in the area or anywhere else for that matter that the U.S. means business, that Donald Trump will pull the trigger, yada, yada, yada. Well, was it imminent or was it part of a broader strategy? Because if it's part of a broader strategy, well, it's not imminent. It becomes convenient. It becomes a part of that broader strategy. Something that you've been thinking about for months, not something that said, Mr. President, we have very pressing intelligence. You got to pull the trigger or we're going to suffer some serious consequences here. Okay, pull the trigger. Well, from what we're hearing from members of Congress, Democrats and Republicans are saying the briefing that they received from the administration on this pressing imminent intelligence just ain't there, folks. It just ain't there. It was very disrespectful to Congress as an institution, as a body of government, as a check and balance on the executive. And then we have Donald Trump coming out and tweeting basically, well, who cares? Who cares about the Constitution? Who cares if I have to reach out to Congress and get their permission? Who cares? Because, after all, Soleimani was a terrorist. He was a bad dude. Who cares? Is that the country we live in? Who cares? Who cares about the Constitution? Who cares about the rule of law? Who cares about checks and balances and having respect for other branches of our government? This is the ends justifying the means. This is a very, very, very dangerous, slippery slope. Because if this president, or any other president for that matter, is going to come out and allow the ends to justify the means, well then the Constitution is completely gone. And some people could probably make an articulate argument that the Constitution has already been shredded years ago. And I'd be hard to counter them. But that's what the president tweeted out today. Who cares? Who cares? He was a bad guy. Who cares if it was imminent? Who cares if it was this, that, or the other? Who cares? He was a bad guy. He's gone. There's no question he was a bad guy. There's a lot of bad guys walking around. If you killed all the bad people on this planet, there probably wouldn't be that many. Maybe that's what needs to be done. Maybe it isn't. But I can tell you what. I thought there was supposed to be a distinction, a difference between those terrorists in the United States of America because the terrorists don't give a damn about laws and rules and this, that, and the other. Isn't that what's supposed to separate us from the terrorists? That we have an appreciation, that we adhere to the rule of law, not to the rule of man? Isn't that what we're supposed to do? Isn't that what's supposed to be the differentiating factor? A very important one. It's a very dangerous, slippery slope, believe me when I tell you. And this goes right back to our discussion of impeachment. Because I said when it comes down to it, ladies and gentlemen, one of the big decisions that you have to make when it comes to this is, will President Donald J. Trump do it again? Will he feel exonerated? July 24th, Bob Mueller comes out with his statement. The very next day, July 25th, Donald Trump is on the phone with President Zelensky of Ukraine. Do us a favor. Look into this company. Look into the Bidens. Bob Mueller. Our report does not exonerate the President of the United States. Attorney General Bill Barr, who was appointed by President Trump, who was a buddy of President Trump, at least right now because he appears to be loyal. Bill Barr, Attorney General. The Mueller report does not exonerate the President of the United States. Thunder thumbs via Twitter. I've been exonerated. I can do whatever I want. I have total and complete power, Article 2 of the Constitution, which he just basically doesn't care about because he killed a bad guy, and so what difference does it make? I don't have to talk to anybody. I make the decision. I pull the trigger, blah, 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 blah. Is that good? Now the president thinks he has this ultimate power to assassinate people and doesn't have to consult with members of Congress, doesn't have to give the war power, even though it resides with Congress, doesn't have to do it. He can make that unilateral decision. You know, that was one of the pressing points, a key factor in creating a Congress. The wisdom of our founding fathers. You think Donald J. Trump is wiser, more prudent than our founding fathers? You got to go get your head checked if you believe that for a second. They didn't want war powers being vested solely with the President of the United States. That's why they gave that power to Congress. The power of the people to decide. They're going to be the ones fighting the damn war. They're the ones who get to have a say. Not the king, not a queen. The people. You people want to be tough. Then you go over there and fight it. Don't send me. Don't send my brothers. Don't send my sisters over there. You go fight it since you're the tough guy. And wear your red hat while you're at it. I mean, you understand the consequences of this? Do you understand that this is the crumbling of the republic? This is a continuation. Again, this is not all Donald J. Trump's fault. This is a continuation. It's the same playbook, the same words that we heard 20 years ago during the Bush administration. We have pressing intelligence. It's a slam dunk, Mr. President. Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction. We know he wants nuclear weapons. We got yellow cake. Get Betty Crocker in here. Let her bake it up. I mean, this is ridiculous. Trillions of dollars later, we're obviously reaping no benefits. And the Iraqis want us out of their country. Well, surprise, surprise. And now that was such a success. Now we're meddling very aggressively with Iran, with no end game whatsoever. Then we have Donald Trump giving an interview to Fox News. Well, don't the people deserve, and this is a fair question too that Laura Ingraham asked him, don't the American people deserve to see that intelligence? I mean, we're the ones who are going to be fighting this damn war if we get involved with it. Shouldn't we know what actually took place? No, I don't think so. Well, what was actually going to take place? What was Soleimani going to do? Well, he was going to attack a U.S. embassy. Oh, was he? What else was he going to do? Well, I think he was going to attack 4. He was going to attack 4 U.S. embassies. Then, Secretary of Defense Esper is asked the same question. Was there intelligence? Was there evidence that Soleimani was going to attack 4 U.S. embassies? No, I've never seen such evidence. I have no intelligence that this was going to be the case. That might be the truest statement ever. I have no intelligence. The whole damn government has no intelligence. So maybe we finally got some truth out of this thing. Donald Trump, 4 U.S. embassies were under imminent attack, imminent threat by Soleimani. Secretary of Defense Esper, I've seen no such evidence. I've seen no intelligence. Who do you want to believe? Because you can't believe both of them. Somebody's lying. Because one says it's there, the other says it isn't. They can both be lying, but they both can't be telling the truth. Who are you going to believe? Do you believe Donald Trump that 4 embassies were under imminent attack? Or Secretary of Defense saying he's seen no such evidence, no such intelligence? Are we going to be lied into another war? I told you this thing isn't over. There might be a slow de-escalation, and I hope that's what happens. I hope it's peaceful. I hope we get back to the negotiating table. I hope Iran does not come up with a nuclear weapon. I hope they don't start shooting other rockets and missiles at other countries, our allies, friends, other areas. It makes no difference to me. I don't want to see a whole bunch of people killed for no reason. But this is what's going on. You ready to go fight for it? You ready to have your taxes increased to pay for this? Or are you ready to see more inflation? Because it's going to have to be paid for in one of 2 ways, if not both, and it most likely will be both. It'll be higher taxes and more money printing, which is inflation by definition. So there goes your tax cuts, right out the window. Your purchasing power, anything else that you got in your pocket is now going to be sucked right out through the devaluation of the U.S. dollar via the Federal Reserve, which, by the way, still has the pedal to the metal. We have stock valuations through the roof, meeting or exceeding, depending on the metric, levels we have not seen since the dot-com era. And remember, folks, during that period, valuations were at their highest in history. So now we are back to that period in some instances, and in some, we're even higher than that. Buy low, sell high. You better be very careful if you continue to buy when these markets continue to make all-time highs. Because what took place in 2000 after that? 80, 90% loss. You ready for that? You going to time that? Good luck. Good luck, because you'll lose 20, 30% overnight. Good luck getting that back. Because if that happens, that's all she wrote. For a long time, believe me when I tell you. The question is, what's going to be the catalyst? Because you got a Federal Reserve who was supposed to be easing up on that pedal. January was supposed to be it. Temporary repo madness. Yep. January, we're going to put a pause to it. Now, well, we might go through the first quarter of 2020. Might take it into April. Might have to do it. Then another idiot with the Federal Reserve said, well, we might have to do quantitative easing. Newsflash, let me let you in on a little secret. You're already doing it. You're already doing quantitative easing. These people have no moral compass. They do not care. They will not admit that what they are doing is shooting from the hip and causing huge misallocation of resources, huge levels of malinvestment, and they have no idea when the fat lady is going to sing. Nor are they going to tell you. The only time any of these central bankers will give you a warning is when they are no longer a central banker. Once they're out, they get religion. Oh, yeah, we never should have done X, Y, Z. Oh, yeah, I told them every meeting, every chance I had not to do it. But when they're in there, they go along. But once they're out, it's a different story. It's a different story. Almost to a man and woman. The only idiot that's still out there that continues to press what he did is Ben Bernanke, which tells you his arrogance and his stupidity. Okay, and he has a PhD, he's teaching at Princeton, from MIT, all this stuff. So before you send your kids there, just think about the people that have come out of there. Some of them very fantastic, some of them not so much. Maybe it's 50-50. So do your research before you send your kids to some of these quote-unquote fancy schools and make sure they get big scholarships so they don't have to be out of pocket. because they might not be in the right bucket when they come out. They could be the genius or they can be the idiot. We've seen both in our government, believe me when I tell you. So do your homework on it. So that's it. I'm going to wrap it up there. Truth, lies, what's the difference? Donald Trump, Jay Powell, Schumer, Pelosi, McConnell. What difference does it make? Stay vigilant, stay diversified, and stay with the Capital News. I am Alex Kreitis. Godspeed.